Dana White has guaranteed that the highly anticipated heavyweight title unification bout between Jon Jones and Tom Aspinall will happen in 2025, because even though Jones publicly dismisses the fight, he is more open to it in private conversations.
Jones versus Aspinall, is that sort of the big priority, and you think that's the biggest fight the promotion can put on in 2025?
100%. I think it's probably the biggest fight in heavyweight history, and it's a massive fight in the history of the company too. It's a big fight.
Yeah, we know Tom Aspinall's down. Jones is kind of like on the fence, or at least that's what he said publicly.
Right.
Have you talked?
It's weird.
How confident?
What's weird about that? Let me tell you what's weird about that. So usually those guys say that shit behind the scenes and not publicly. Jon says that shit publicly, but not behind the scenes. Jon is a very unique individual to deal with. From day one, I've been confident that Jon Jones would do that fight, right? I mean, even before the fight, I said if he won, there's no way Jon doesn't do this fight. Jon Jones isn't afraid to fight anybody, and that's a fact. And the only time that anything remotely weird has ever happened with Jon Jones was the time that his fucking camp did the weird Chael Sonnen thing. We can't fight Chael Sonnen on short notice. Other than that, and that wasn't him, it was his team, and he listened to his team for whatever reason. But that's like the goofiest fucking move in the history of the UFC. But other than that, Jon Jones behind the scene is not a guy that turns down fights.
Would you guarantee 100% we see that fight?
Yeah, I'll say 100%.
Starboy is relentless in his pursuit of a title shot against champion Alexander Pantoja, even beginning his appeal to Dana White between the second and third rounds of his bout with Bruno Silva at UFC Tampa, a fight he won with the 12th knockout of his career. During the post-fight press conference, Starboy joked that if he didn't get the chance to talk to White after the event, he'd have no problem showing up at his house to keep pushing for his title opportunity. Me and Dana, we are neighbors. We live 10 minutes away from each other. So if we don't get that conversation, then I'm going to his home. I'm going to knock on his door. At the post-fight press conference, Dana responded to Starboy's request.
Mano Cape had a lot to say, right? You guys had a combo there.
Yeah, we had a nice conversation tonight.
Yeah, he's like, you were like, yo, I'll meet you in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Did you get to talk to him? And if so, how was that conversation?
How do you know what we were talking about? That's fascinating. He said, you know, this, that, and that. I said, well, let's finish this one first. You got 5 more minutes. So, and he went out and he did it.
Is he getting the next title shot at flyweight, you think?
No, he's not getting a title shot, but we'll definitely give him what he's looking for.
After a reporter asked Covington to comment on the Ian versus Shavkat fight, Covington gave a response that wasn't particularly surprising. This raises the question, does Covington hate Ian Gary that much, or did he just pick him again coincidentally?
You did mention them before. Ian and Shavkat did fight last week. I'd be curious to get your take on how they both performed. And, Ian wasn't very nice about you in the lead up to that fight, said you'd never fight him, etc. I wondered if you have any response for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's a cuck. He sits in the corner while his wife gets dogged out by the nutritionist. Isn't that just weird? Like, I don't know why more people don't, talk about that. It's just disgusting that he brings the last name of your wife's ex-husband. It's just fucking strange. And, my thing is hey, he does nothing for my career. What does he do for me? He's an absolute nobody who's beaten nobody. So I told him, hey, if you want this fight, just answer the 3 stipulations. Turn on your comments. Your wife wants to be so famous so bad she's quoting Shakespeare, which is just weird in itself. And we know how much weird shit goes on in Shakespeare about fucking cousins, fucking family, all the weird shit they do. But hey, you want to be famous, make a video begging for the fight. And then if you really think you're going to beat me, agree that if you lose the fight, your wife has to be in my video for BC Game, and we do an America's Pick of the Week for the people. He couldn't, he couldn't answer, and he couldn't meet the stipulations, so there's no reason for me to fight him. He's a bum. I mean, the fight's never been offered, but I can tell you one thing. I have the power to make fights happen. I can go to Hunter Campbell. I can go to Dana White and be like, hey, Dana, hey, Hunter, I want this fight. This is the fight I want. This is the fight that makes sense. This is what the people want. But
Chael Sonnen was in disbelief at how Buckley consistently anticipated Covington's takedown attempts, impressed by his speed and intelligence. He admitted that at one point, he even considered throwing in the towel after seeing the condition of Covington's eye.
He would be a problem for Rakhmonov. The Rakhmonov that fought 2 weeks ago, tonight's Buckley would have beat him. Buckley would be a problem for Ian Gary. Buckley would be a match for Bilal Muhammad. Does any of that surprise you? Would you like to disagree with any of that? And I bring that to you because we knew going into the fight we're dealing with a very good guy. We weren't overlooking Buckley. I'm just sharing for you, he turned out to be better. He turned out to be more powerful. He turned out to be faster. He turned out to be able to push a little harder in certain situations. Smart guy, too. Colby coming in for takedowns, but Buckley knew. Every time Colby was thinking takedowns, somehow Buckley knew. I would love if these two make up. Sometimes you do that after you fight. You shake hands and maybe even help one another. I would love if Buckley would call me or tell me, because before Colby shot, every time Buckley knew. And Buckley defended it the same way every time, which is he backed up so the fence is there, and that makes it wildly difficult to score. And I just want to know how he knew. What was the tell? They love to say the last thing to go is your power. Now, that is not true. They that say that are dum-dums, but that's the fight community, and the fight community says the last thing to go is your power. But the first thing to go is your grit. How bad do I want it? You ask yourself subconsciously that within 30 seconds of a fight. Within 30 seconds, you're already thinking, right? When your clock and your time has expired, you're already thinking, do I want to be in here? And there was nothing in that fight. I mean, Colby looked so dog tough. Buckley did too. Colby was getting hit on his feet with everything you could do. I mean, he's busted open so bad, the doctor has to look at it 3 times. Twice, he stops the action to let it keep going. The 3rd time, he said, man, we can't go anymore. I was going to stop that fight. I already grabbed the towel. When the doctor came in for the 3rd time, and I'm watching that blood, it's not stopping. And it is going into the eye. And that's the only thing you're really looking for. When we as fight fans, we as tough guys, think the doctor should have stopped it. We're talking about, it doesn't really matter how bad the cut is from our perspective, as long as it's not going in the eye. If it's blinding a guy, it doesn't matter if it's a little or a lot. If it's in his eye and he can no longer see out of that eye, it's the same thing. It's the exact same thing. If this much blood is stopping you from seeing, a flood of blood still stops you from seeing. And this was bad, and this was in the eye. And I stood up so I could see what the doctor was doing. I told Charlie, the number 2, I said, hand me that towel. I'm stopping this.
Conor McGregor's recent Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu training footage labeled as white belt level by elite UFC lightweight grappler Chase Hooper. Despite McGregor receiving his Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in 2023, Hooper criticized his technique, particularly his knee on belly position. Here are Chase's comments and the video of Conor's training. Objectively, that's a white belt level knee on belly. But what about subjectively? Subjectively, I wouldn't let someone post a video of me looking that bad. That leads me to extrapolate me that he doesn't really know what he's doing, so he doesn't know that it looks bad.